And we're live. How's it going, man?
It's going good.
Good.
Going good.
We're doing a video and audio version of this podcast / YouTube video right now. I got Brandon Clark in the building. This is the second time you've been on the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
And you are how many days out from your first bodybuilding competition?
4 days out today.
4 days out. How you feeling?
Yes. I feel rough.
Feel pretty rough?
Yeah.
So I want this is going to be a two-part series. I want to do a right before you compete podcast, and then again follow up right after you compete.
Okay.
And I want to talk about, we'll talk about your prep and kind of go into the details behind that, but I also want to talk about like the mindset, kind of how you're feeling right now, and then you can listen to this again after you compete, and I feel like it'll give you more perspective.
Okay.
We're sipping on some coffee. I've got heavy cream in mine, but you don't have anything in yours.
No. Haven't had anything in mind for a while.
Yeah, that black coffee life.
Yes.
So you were doing something pretty interesting. The fact that you're doing DSK for your nutrition.
Yes.
For the prep, and you're following that to a T.
Mm-hmm.
But you're also not training like people would normally train going into a competition prep.
Right.
So kind of just we did like a little background on you on the first podcast. So if anybody hadn't heard that one, definitely check that one out. This is gonna be like a little in between episode, so to speak, because we're just gonna dive into a very specific topic.
Okay.
And I want to just talk in depth about what your prep protocol has been for anybody that's not familiar with Deeper State Keto. And this is not designed to be like a salesy thing for Deeper State Keto by any means, because I'm excited to see how you have incorporated it and what it's done for you. But just walk me through your prep, man. Like, when did you start? What was your weight? What was your body fat composition? Just walk me through all the details.
All right. So I started on May 27th. So 20 weeks ago. This is week 20 that we're in right now. And I was at 16% body fat. I was and have been following a ketogenic lifestyle for a while. And at the time, I was at my maintenance weight of 100. Well, I was at 186 pounds, and my typical maintenance is usually around 180 to 185. So I started. I went through the entire DSK course to get a grasp for it, and before I started. And then started from scratch from the beginning, setting up my macros based off of the calculator that the course provides, and essentially starting from scratch at that point, which put me at, if I'm recalling correctly, right between 2,200 and 2,300 calories for my personal situation,
which is pretty low to start.
Yes.
For a male as physically active as you are, that's a pretty low starting point.
Yes.
Which is probably why your calories are as low as they are now.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I really want to backtrack just a second here, because it's funny to me that you're following, because the DSK was not designed for bodybuilding specifically, but you seem to be having pretty good results with it as a bodybuilding prep. And honestly, it's the same protocol that I use when I do my prep, same protocol I use with my clients, but it's cool to me that you followed that solely. I mean, I've not helped you really at all with your nutrition. A little bit here at the end with the refeeds, but that's it.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's been completely just following the coursework of DSK. So I didn't mean to interrupt you. I just had to go off on a tangent there.
Deeper State Keto has been different than, I've been following a ketogenic lifestyle now since 2016, fall of 2016. So coming up on my, I'm right at about 3 years. And I had never done anything, I've used this phrasing referring to Deeper State Keto in several posts and discussions with people, but I've never followed a ketogenic protocol so detailed and so strategic. I have had a ton of success following some of the traditional ketogenic guidelines, but this has taken it to a whole other level that I didn't even think was possible. And I initially, even at the onset, didn't think that it was really possible to follow a ketogenic protocol, at least to be extremely difficult to keep your total carbohydrates below 10 grams.
Mm-hmm.
And what the course ends up doing is it teaches you so much about food, about what's really in food, and really trains you how to follow the strategy in order to accomplish those goals. And it is possible. I've been following it now for 20 weeks, and at the onset of it, I was skeptical, or at least found it daunting, the thought of keeping my carbs that low.
Mm-hmm.
But having followed different protocols and gotten pretty low before, I knew that it could really only magnify the results to restrict my carbohydrates even more. I was at least confident in that.
So from a low carbohydrate perspective, 10 grams total carbs is incredibly low. And that's kind of like the ceiling. Like, you can have less than 10 grams, but you can't go over 10 grams.
Right.
So, like, most people hear that, and they just feel like it's not sustainable.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's days where I'll have more than 10 grams for sure. But for the purpose of a very finite period of time, we're like, okay, this is a contest prep. I'm going into this with a specific goal. I want to change my composition by X amounts over this period of time. Mm-hmm. I feel like having your total carbs that low has a profound impact on your body's ability to really just strip all that is unnecessary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I would say I absolutely found that. And not only that, one of the best things about keto is, that it provides a lot of intestinal, digestive relief, including intermittent fasting and all of that. I have found personally, for me, it has done that a lot. But like everything else in this course, Deeper State Keto took it to the next level, to where any potential digestion issues were absolutely minimal. And I've never really found that before with any type of nutrition protocol. And I believe that's largely, in fact, to the fact that carbohydrates are so severely limited during the program.
So I want to give people a little bit of reference here. So, you've been doing this for 20 weeks now, you said?
This is week 20, yes.
Week 20. And you started at 186?
Yes.
And what are you currently?
So last night I had my lowest weigh-in so far, which was 160.6.
160.6.
Yeah.
That's crazy, dude.
Yeah.
So what is that, 26 pounds?
26 pounds below what I used to consider my maintenance weight.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That is one thing about competition preps in general. I'm not talking specifically DSK, but just doing a competition prep, if you get as lean as you need to get, as lean as you should get, you start losing weight you didn't realize you had.
Yeah.
I don't feel like you've lost any sizable amount of muscle, but it's amazing how much unnecessary, or not unnecessary, but just excess tissue, water, fluids, fat, the body holds when it's just at maintenance. It's a healthy thing. A lot of people think that's bad. That's not bad. That's healthy.
Mm-hmm.
But what you're doing, the whole aspect of competition prep and bodybuilding in general, it's a pretty extreme sport. This is not something that you would have to do in nature.
Right.
This is
right.
kind of an outlier, and in order to get to that outlierish conditioning, you have to do things that are not normal.
Yeah.
And I feel like you're definitely doing things that are not normal. The things, it's cool for me to watch, because normally I'm on the other side of the fence and I'm the one going through the prep. So I watch some of the things that you do now, and it brings me back, and I'm like, oh, I see where he's at right now. I understand where he's coming from. He wants those miracle noodles so bad he's going to drive across town to get them.
Yep, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So,
absolutely.
So talk a little bit about some of the changes that you've noticed that you didn't expect, or didn't really have any perspective on grasping. Here lately, this past month, your composition has changed pretty drastically, but a lot of people expect that after the first couple weeks.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas probably for you, I'm assuming for most people, the first several weeks, it seems like nothing's changing hardly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very gradual process, which again is totally different from what I've done before, because I've done cutting periods before, since I've been following a ketogenic lifestyle where I just dialed in, got strict, was practicing daily intermittent fasting, and but I would drop my calories way too low and try and make as dramatic of a change as possible over an extremely short period of time. And in that, I noticed that I felt like I lost a lot of muscle in the process, where I would drop my calories 500 to 700 calories, start OMADing every day, and essentially try and see how much weight I could drop in like 30 days. And while that was effective at losing weight, I also felt like I got really small really fast, lost a lot of hard-earned muscle. What I noticed following Deeper State, for the time frame that I have, 20 weeks, I've noticed that I have retained a lot of muscle, and I've kind of gone through phases. The initial phases where my thought process was, man, it's not coming off as fast as when I would do those really drastic cuts for 30 days. But then I would go back to when I watched your videos that are on the course, where it's like, trust the process and play the long game. This is a long game approach, and the process is effective. You can trust it. And so I kind of kept telling myself that, like, maybe I could have lost more weight in this short period of time had I followed something else, but I'm going to trust the process and see what happens. So I kept gradually dropping, but I also felt like I was retaining more muscle in the process. So another phrase that you say in the course that stuck in my mind was gradually, ever so slightly applying pressure that forces your body to change its composition. And so I kept that in mind, that this 1 pound here, 2 pounds there, that's all going to add up. I've set aside 20 weeks, to see how far I can go, and I'm going to trust the process on this. So as I continued, I did hit a phase. Once I started hitting I would say once I crossed the 10 pounds barrier and was approaching around 15, I started feeling like I had gotten small again. And I was like, all right, here it is. This is that phase that it was all that I knew before. But then as I continued, I ended up reaching a point here, I would say within this last month, to where there is a visual illusion taking place, because I'm not putting on muscle. I'm still losing body fat, but yet I'm appearing bigger, more muscular. And even my wife has commented that it looks like it can't be possible that I'm less weight, because it looks like I'm much more muscular than I was weeks ago. It looks like I'm putting on muscle. And I have just really been astounded at how, if you stick to it, like the consistency factor in it has a compounding snowball effect. And I mentioned in an Instagram post the other day that you can absolutely trust the process on this, that it will take you to the best version of yourself. You just have to trust the process and stay consistent with it, and have that mindset of that long game approach, and gradually applying pressure so your body changes over time. And I'm a believer in it.
It's funny, man. Like there are definitely different phases that your body goes through, and then your mind goes through, but like your body specifically goes through during the course of a prep. And like you lose a little bit of weight initially, and a lot of it's just the excess, food and water retention you get from eating at a surplus. And when you lose that, and then you lose the next 5 or 10 pounds, it's like you're not cut enough. You don't look defined enough to see the benefit from what you're doing, but you just feel smaller because you don't have that extra, like, fluff that has the illusion of being muscle.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when you look flat. That's when you look depleted. You don't look filled out, and you don't look ripped. It's like that limbo land where most people get depressed and they just assume that nothing's working, and they give up and they binge and they feel full again, and then they feel like they've got more muscle, but then that's why they never get super cut, because they never make it through that window. But if you do the work and you play the long game and you are consistent, when you do cross into that, definition phase where, like, things just start changing, it's freaky, man. It's not like things are changing in a short period of time. It's like those things are changing now because of all the work put in place leading up to that time. So if you don't put in the work, you'll never get to that phase. But once you get to that phase, you start seeing changes on, like, a 24-hour evolving basis. Like, these past several mornings, you've been coming in, we've been going through your poses, working on posing, and it's like every 24 hours, every day, every morning you come in, I see a new vein that I didn't see there yesterday, or I see, like, this new muscle striation that wasn't there before. And it's cool, man. It's cool because, like, you really hone in on how these minute changes to 500 milligrams of sodium versus, a little tweak, like 5 grams of extra fat or something, makes such a profound impact on how you look. And then when you recognize that, you become like a believer in the fact that, okay, this stuff works. But most people don't ever get there, so they just never have that perspective, which is sad, because having the power to manipulate your body and how it looks like that is freaking awesome.
Oh yeah, it's taken me to, like, I've followed and been into bodybuilding and fitness, like I said on the last podcast, ever since I was in middle school, and I always read about competition prep and read about what these bodybuilders and fitness models did to get into the condition to compete on stage, and I thought I knew. I felt like I thought I knew what they were talking about, and in several of the cuts that I've done in the past, I've thought that I had experienced what they had experienced, and I found out that is not the case. There was a whole other level, an uncomfortable level that I didn't even realize existed, and has given me a lot more respect for those athletes that do this on a regular, routine basis.
It's funny, man. Before I did my first competition, I claimed myself as a bodybuilder. I'm like, yeah, I'm a bodybuilder. I've earned that title. I train hard. I prep on my meals. I carry these Tupperwares around. This is when I fall on the traditional bro diet approach. Had 6 meals a day, and I'm like, yeah, I'm a bodybuilder. I read the magazines. I watch the YouTube videos. I'm a bodybuilder. I had no right to call myself a bodybuilder until after I'd gone through that first prep. Like, what you learn about yourself, your capabilities, the mindset, the emotional, the physical, everything, you have no right to call yourself a bodybuilder until you've experienced that, because that is the defining factor that makes you a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
And that is freaking awesome, man. Like, when you do that, like, you will never be the same, because you've totally shifted in your mind what's possible. And that has a profound impact on every aspect of your life going forward.
Yeah, I really see, too, that, anything that's ever been hard, like the hardest things in life, can usually, it's usually good things that are hard, things of value. And it's those hard things that you go through that can produce the best results in your own personal development, and then in those around you. And I really feel like having gone through this and the mental challenge, and I've read before about how you develop mental strength, and this is a test. This is a test, and it is developing strength that I feel like I'll be able to tap back into when I face different things of adversity in the future. This is a level of a challenge that will not be forgotten. for sure.
It's funny, man. Like, the first competition in my mind is the hardest because you don't have any, perspective on what it is that's about to happen. Like, you just don't know. It's like the fear of the unknown is at its all-time highest. And because of that, there's, like, no light at the end of the tunnel. Like, you've got a competition in a few days. It's all going to be over soon. But it's like there's just this massive unknown that gives you excitement, but at the same time, it's like, I have no idea what I'm even doing this for. Yeah. Like, there's just this gaping black hole in my future right now. And I asked you a minute ago, I'm like, based off of how you feel now and what you've experienced thus far, do you think you'll ever want to do this again? And you said no. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, okay, that's totally normal. That's what everybody says. But I'm excited for the follow-up podcast because I've got a feeling, as is true with me, it will be the same for you. When you go through it and then you feel like you feel after you step off stage, knowing that you gave it your all, there's no feeling that compares to that. And you recognize that you grow so much in such a finite period of time because of this incredible hardship that you can't really replicate that in most circumstances. I mean, like, if you have some crazy, unfortunate event happen that totally shifts your outlook on life, I mean, that would be a profound impact that would equate. But just in normal day-to-day living, nothing you can do is going to make you change this much in such a short period of time, relatively speaking. I mean, 20 weeks is not that long in the grand scheme of things. Mm-hmm. So you start, like, you go through, like, a reverse, and then you, like, get back to normal life, and things just start to settle down. You can eat all the food you want to again. But then in the back of your mind, as you're living this normal day-to-day life, having experienced what you're going through now, you know that you have to do it again because it's like, I'm settling in life right now. Like, I've got to satisfy this itch because I know I'll be a better person if I do it, Mm-hmm. So, like, for me, that's how it is for me. Like, every 2 years or so, 2.5, 3 years, I'm like, okay, I know that in order for me to push to the next level in my life, to turn the page and start a new chapter, I got to do another show. Yeah. And I've got a feeling it might be the same for you. It's totally.
We'll see.
It's out there, man.
We'll see.
Your wife probably is not gonna like that.
Probably not. I'll definitely have to get permit. I mean, that is like one thing, like, I would say to anybody, like, with a family.
You got 5 kids. I'll remind everybody, you got 5 kids, so you have no small family by any means.
No. And when you're, I mean, I feel like, and I think people are going to be able to tell that are listening to this, like, I am talking slow. At least I feel like I'm talking slow. And at different times having difficulty, like, trying to find the word to express what I want to express. And it's purely an effect of the depleted state that I'm in. When you're coming home, to a family at night, they have waited all day, for you. And when you're at this point that I've been at in this last phase, you have very little left to give. And, like when you're tired and you're hungry and, all these things, your fuse is, very close to blowing. And you really have to be mentally aware of that. And that's where you really need to, make sure that your family backs you up on doing it before you do it, because they are gonna need to support it, because it's not something that you just feel by yourself, unless you're a single guy and you live by yourself. But even still, it's going to impact those that are important in your life that you come in contact with. But your family, that much more, because they are going through every day of those 20 weeks with you. And all of the calculating every macro and every meal is significant, and restricting yourself when they're enjoying certain times, and then your patience level being very, very low. When at a lot of times as a husband and father, like, that is one of the greatest strengths you can have is your level of patience, or need to have, and that is tested. That is tested.
I honestly, I salute you, man, because I don't know, based off of the kind of person that I am, I don't know that I'd be able to do it. Like, I mean, if I was presented that situation, I'd probably, knuckle through it. But having gone through several preps now and knowing the type of dark places I allow myself to get, probably wrongfully so, but still, nevertheless, it happens. Like, having 5 kids and a wife, being in a situation like that while working full time and having the responsibilities you do, I mean, my fuse would be non-existent, man. I'd be like, I'd be an unhealthy person to be around. So the fact that you've been able to do it is pretty freaking amazing, man. And I'm amazed that you don't make excuses, because that, like, so many people say, I'm never going to do a competition. I've always wanted to. If you've never wanted to, then no harm, no foul. But if you've always wanted to, but then you don't allow yourself to because, oh, I've got a full-time job. Oh, I've got kids. You have all those things, and you're not making excuses. Like, you're just saying, okay, this is what I've committed to. I'm going to do it. No questions asked. Let's make it happen. And that is incredibly respectable, because you don't see that level of determination as often as you should. So keep killing it, man, because you're doing it right.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm excited. Hopefully, in all fairness, like, your family, they had no idea what they were getting into when they signed up and supported you in the beginning, because they had no perspective either.
Right.
So, yeah, I imagine your wife and kids are like, okay, when's this thing over?
They are ready for this to be. Oh yeah, they ask me every couple days, how much longer, how many more weeks, how many more days. But then they also, like, the other night, they were like looking at me and talking about how crazy it was, all the changes and everything, and how lean I had gotten. And I like to I always tell my oldest boy, I really try and focus on my oldest son John, because he's 13 now, and I feel like the time is escaping me to have an impact on him. And he's actually coming with me this weekend, coming with us on the trip for the competition. But he has a book that I really like the title of, and it's just simply titled "Do Things That Are Hard." And
who wrote that? Who's the author?
I can't think of it off the top of my head.
I'll have to check it out.
But it's "Do Things That Are Hard," and I haven't read it, but I really like that title. and it made me want to read it. And it's a book that a family member actually got for John, and I loved seeing it, because it's so much of life is people trying to find the easy way out, and it's always your natural tendency to go towards that comfort and that easy route. And it's like the more that you can grasp and see the value in the hard things that you go through, and realize, okay, all right, something hard is going on in my life right now. Whether it is brought about by your decision to do it, or it's uncontrolled circumstance. Both of them, the way that you face it and the way that you endure it and persevere and come through it in the end, will ultimately determine the person that you are and what you can contribute. And so I want my family, and especially my boy with the stage that he's at, John, to really grasp that, the importance of that, of life is gonna be hard. And the more that you can be ready for that, embrace it, and be prepared to overcome it, is just going to be all steps in the right direction to making you hopefully the tremendous human being that God intended to develop you to be.
Totally agree, man. I've said this on multiple podcasts, but the book "The Obstacle Is the Way" by Ryan Holiday is that for me. Like, it's all about Stoicism, and it allows you to, like, almost remove yourself from your body and your situation in life and analyze it third person and be like, okay, if you look at you right now and you step away and look at third person, it's like all this hardship that you're going through is self-imposed. Like, nobody's holding a gun to your head saying, look, you've got to eat this few calories, you have to train this hard, you have to get this little sleep. Like, these are all decisions that you are imposing on yourself.
My wife reminds me of that.
Yeah, I bet. But, I mean, you have a happy, healthy family. You've got employment here at Keto Brick. I mean, you've got all your basic needs are met. There's people that have, like, missing limbs in, like, third world countries, like, all kinds of terrible stuff that's not their own doing. And when you think about that and then you look at your hardship in life, it gives you perspective, and it's like, okay, what I'm doing is benefiting my psyche, my mindset. I'll be able to use this knowledge going forward. It's all self-imposed. What in the world am I complaining about? And then it makes you dig that much deeper and push that much harder.
Yeah.
And it's, if you, like, for me now that I have, like, a platform, I'm seen as an influence in the keto space, it's cool because that is like for one, selfishly, it's like a accountability factor. Because, I mean, I don't want to let my people down, my audience down, by not doing what I've committed to. But when you know that what you're doing is educating, inspiring, or informing or helping others in some form or fashion, it makes it that much harder to go back on it. So leveraging social media in that regard is huge. But, like, the whole aspect of stoicism and mindset, I mean, I literally have that book, The Obstacles of the Way, on repeat on Audible whenever I go through a prep. Like, I'll be doing squats and I've got this audio book, it's just like talking to me in my head, because, like, you get to a point where you're literally living, and we've talked about this, you're literally living in 30-minute increments, day to day to day. Like, you have to think about what's about to happen, prepare yourself both mentally and physically. Like, opening a door becomes a task, you know? And you have to just, like, make it through this 30 minutes, then make it through the next 30 minutes. And it talks about that a lot in that book, just, like, making it through day by day, playing the long game, and sustaining it, and then knowing that what you're doing is benefiting you. Like, it's possible. It's positive,
Yeah.
That is cool, man. Like, you don't get that. Like, we don't live in a time frame anymore. Not everybody, but, like, you and I, like, we're all of our basic needs are met. Like I said, we're not going to battle every single day to, survive. Like, we have to go out of our way to impose these hardships on ourselves, or else we're just not going to grow like we need to. I mean, 300 years ago, where, like, survival was a question. Like, am I going to wake up and die today?
Yeah.
Like, that was a question that people had to ask themselves. Whereas now it's like, I mean, you can literally get, government handouts and sit on couch and watch Netflix all day and never grow as a person.
Right.
So you have to go out of your way to impose these hardships. But when you do, and you see the benefit from it, it's like, how can you imagine going through life not doing this?
Yeah.
And that's powerful, man. That's powerful.
Yeah, I feel like the where all of this takes you is something that you can absolutely keep in your back pocket for when you face those adversities. That life is full of mountains and valleys, and you're going to hit those low points, and there is going to be bad things happen. And I feel like it's almost the same process, like, but will be so beneficial, and is so beneficial, to have some adversities that you've already gone through, whether self-imposed, or uncontrolled in your past, that you have overcome, that you can almost have that reassurance, that that you've been able to push through and overcome, before. And so I really feel like, this will be one of those things for me that I'm able to look back on and think about the process, think about the process that I went through to overcome these certain periods mentally, and the mental strength that was developed in that, and then the fact that I can reflect upon that and then bring it up to utilize it in the future, I think holds a lot of value.
There's a lot to be said for that, man. Like, David Goggins says it really good. He's like, he's gone through all kinds of crazy hard stuff. I like David Goggins a lot, but he's like, he calls it his cookie jar. He can reach in that cookie jar and pull something out, a memory, and use that whenever he goes through hardships going forward. And, I mean, I like to do hard things on a regular basis. Like, it reminds me of the fact that life shouldn't be easy, And anytime I do something hard, in the moment it just sucks. It's like, okay, I'm ready for this to be over. But then as soon as I start getting this feelings, this thought of, oh wow, this sucks, I want this to be over, I immediately go back to a contest prep and I start reflecting on that. And it's like, okay, did that for 5 months and I'm sitting here complaining about this 3 hours or something I've got to do.
Yeah.
No, let's shut up. Let's stop complaining. Let's get to work. Let's put my head down, you know? And when you have that ability to do that, because you have that perspective, it makes your threshold for like your pain tolerance, your patience. I mean, it makes your threshold for all things better. So what becomes your norm is higher and greater than what was your norm. And that compounded over time makes you a stronger, more resilient person. And that's like freaking superhuman status, man. Like once you just keep doing that for your lifetime, you become untouchable, unstoppable. I mean, you can do anything, you know?
Yeah.
That's exciting.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Awesome.
Well, I want to talk about mindset a lot,
Yeah.
but I want to talk about mindset a lot when we do the follow-up podcast because I want to get your after competition mindset thoughts.
Yeah.
So I don't want to dive too deeply into mindset with this one. I want to hear some specifics on like what are some things that you've done to make this more sustainable, whether it be like some hunger hacks, you know, what have you done like with your macros? Like what are your macros looking like now? Like just give people that are listening some specifics so they have kind of a frame of reference here.
So, so initially in the beginning when I was determining, following the macro calculator provided in the program, it set my, you go through that initial period where you're determining what your protein threshold is, where is the optimal fat level for you. And I had thought that it would be higher fat, and then it ended up, I just didn't feel as good with higher protein and lower fat. So the optimal level for me is upper 70s, low 80s for a fat percentage. And that has proven itself even more effective, I believe, as the calories have
I got to stop you real quick right there. So you've lost 26 pounds, you've gotten incredibly lean, and you did it while eating a high fat ratio?
Yeah.
I thought that couldn't be done, man.
Very
I thought that couldn't be done. If you want to lose body fat, you can't have dietary fat, right?
That's right. Yeah, that's what they say. That's what they say. But yeah, I'm burning more fat than I ever have before in my life, eating 80% fat essentially, and I really feel optimal doing that, and it has an even more magnified effect that I feel as the calories have gotten more and more depleted. So once that was determined, then I continued to maintain that percentage throughout the rest of the phases as my calories gradually dropped from, like I said, it was like between 2,200 and 2,300 is what was set up for my personal body. Based off of the facts that I provided the calculator, and then all the way 20 weeks later to now, my calories this week is 1,466 with I believe the fat it's in the 130s. I think it's 133, and the protein is like 58. Which I've never consumed that little amount of protein.
I gotta stop you again here. So you're a bodybuilder, and you're taking in 58 grams of protein. I imagine when this is a bodybuilding competition, we're doing this NAKA competition, which is for ketogenic athletes, which is awesome. It's the first time they've ever had it. But if you were to compete at a normal bodybuilding competition against normal competitors who are following a standard carbohydrate-based protocol, they're all going to be taking in 200, even 300 grams of protein. So you taking in 58 grams of protein, having not lost much muscle whatsoever, is pretty awesome. It's so counter to what the norm is, what society deems as the acceptable intake for protein during a competition prep, that you have to just stop and think about it for a second. When I did mine, I was down to 1,625 calories, I believe, and 65 grams of protein. And people couldn't believe that. And you're lower than mine. And granted, you started a lot lower than I would like to see you start, but that's just kind of what the reality was.
Yeah.
So since your starting calories were so low, your ending calories are pretty low. I mean, 1465, you said?
1466.
66?
Yeah.
That's pretty freaking low, man.
That 1 calorie.
Yeah, can't forget that 1 calorie. That thing counts. Which is pretty low. I mean, that's not something that I would suggest anybody sustain. I've got female clients that are taking in more than that right now by a lot. Yeah. But you're at a very, you're in the home stretch right now. You're about to start ramping up calories, and at this stage, you've moved on to phase 3, so you're doing the refeeds. So,
right.
The refeed calories are how much?
I think the last time I was up close to, I was right around 2,300 calories, the refeed meal.
Which makes eating this little calories throughout the week much more sustainable because you do have a high calorie day.
Right.
And that's not a carb refeed. I'm going to clarify that.
No. The carbs still are super low, and typically still don't go above 10 total. But I feel the positive effects of that refeed in the days that follow, that I'm back on the next, calorie deficit drop.
Mm-hmm.
And then by the time the day before that refeed day,
that's all you can think about.
You're ready for that refeed day. Like, it's your body is depleted, but then it just like literally soaks up the nutrients like a sponge. Like, you can feel it.
So we're basically doing these refeeds and mimicking what we're going to do this week now that we're in peak week. So we're going to implement a ketogenic caloric refeed the day before your competition. So the refeed will be on Friday, competition's on Saturday. That's what we've done for the past, you've had 3 refeeds now total?
Yes.
And so like a lot of competitors, they'll have a big carb refeed. Not keto competitors, but I mean some keto competitors, that's the thing, all the people in the streets are doing it. But a lot of people will have a carb refeed before a competition to fill out, muscle glycogen and have that fuller look on stage, have more vascularity. So I'm curious to get your take on how a keto caloric refeed, while maintaining less than 10 grams total carbs, has filled out your body and given you, what kind of effects are you noticing post refeed?
So I noticed that literally within an hour, I go from looking depleted to, because typically too, I'm in a fasted state when I'm hitting that. Maybe had some butter in my coffee earlier in the day, and when I'm having this sudden influx of these calories that are predominantly coming from fat, I notice I fill out. I notice that, but not fill out in a bad way. I'm not bloated at all. Like I still have full and complete definition in my abdominals, and in my obliques, and yet my muscle bellies are filling out, and the vascularity is like suddenly extremely pronounced. It's like a roadmap, and then not only that, but then all of a sudden you have you notice a huge boost in the mental clarity and your energy. You notice an immediate energy spike as well, and then as time progresses and into the next day, you're still noticing those enhancements, because the sodium increase is a part of that as well. And so yeah, it's crazy. It's like you fill out, your muscle bellies become full, but yet the definition, the striations, your abdominals, no bloating, like all of that is intact with the additional fullness of the muscle, and then you have the vascularity slapped on top of it, and it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, man, it's exciting to see how one meal can have such a dramatic change in how you look. And a lot of, that's what I don't understand, man. Like, a lot of people say they don't get a pump on keto, they don't fill out, they don't have, full muscle bellies. And it's like, I look at what I know based off of my own personal experiences. I look at what we've been able to replicate with you. And then I reach back in my memory banks and look at other clients I've worked with who I've used the exact same protocol on. And same is true, man. Like, they'll send me before pictures and after pictures, and it's like night and day. Like, crazy vascularity, crazy pumps, crazy striations, and no carbs.
Yep.
And it's like, how are people, like, somebody's doing something wrong out there if they're actually keto adapted and actually lean enough to notice these crazy changes and not doing, something's wrong, you know? So I think a lot of it is simply the fact that people don't ever get to that last window of definition.
Yeah.
Because when you get to that phase, it's obvious. Like, it's obvious that it's working.
Yeah.
But people don't get to that phase, so they start doubting and second-guessing the protocol.
Yeah.
But, I mean, like, I don't know. That just really just drives home the point of you have to put in the work to get to that phase. Like, a lot of people do these crazy manipulations during peak week, expecting some miracle to happen, and they're going to go from looking like they're 3 months out to show ready within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's a little far-stretched, but people have that, belief. The cool thing about what we're doing is this peak week protocol is not very different from what we've been doing for the past 20 weeks. What you've been doing for the past 20 weeks and what we've been playing around with these past few weeks of refeeds. I mean, you can go into the competition pretty much knowing with certainty how your body's going to respond, how you're going to look, how you're going to feel. There's no unknown variable there. And that's powerful, man. Like, a lot of people, especially on their first show, it's like the more variables you can control, the better. So, like, the less crazy manipulations you have to do right before, the more certainty you're going to have, the more confidence you're going to have on stage.
It's funny. I've been waiting for that. I've just been waiting for that oh no moment where I've got, where I come to you and I'm like, oh crap, what did I do? What happened? We need to dissect something. And it's crazy. It hasn't happened. It's the whole trusting of the process. The process is rock solid. And it's funny. Before doing deeper state keto, I would have, I probably in the back of my head would have always been like, maybe there is something to this whole, needing to carb up and strategically using carbs, and you really need carbs for these effects or at these different times. And this has just proven to me that not only don't you need them, but following this protocol, I have gotten myself to a more depleted state in terms of everything, but in terms of carbohydrates, while keeping fat as the predominant highest macronutrient that I'm taking in and relying on that. And the further I take that, the more pronounced the benefits.
Yeah, I mean, I've kind of painted myself the picture in the keto space as being the very strict keto, anti-carb guy. So people probably think I'm paying you off to say these things. But I'm not. I mean, I do pay you. You do work at Keto Break, but I'm not paying you to say these things. So, like, it's cool for me because I don't want to be this crazy outlier that this protocol only works on. Like, I don't want that. Like, I want everybody to experience what you're feeling right now because you become better for it. So it's cool for me to see you follow the protocol to a T and see it work flawlessly like it's supposed to. I mean, that's what you want. And I've said it a million times. Like, I don't have anything against people that take carbs. I mean, that would be ridiculous. Like, yeah, I'm not going to define your value or your worth as a person based off the food you eat. Like, if you eat carbs and that works well for you, then more power to you. I'll be the first to say, congratulations, I'm glad it's working, keep doing it. But I get frustrated at the idea that you are going to be sacrificing performance, sacrificing optimization, sacrificing your ability to get lean, get shredded, get ripped, get jacked, and compete as a bodybuilder unless you have carbs.
Yeah.
That's not accurate. And I'm speaking out against that philosophy. So you doing this protocol is just another example of it working on somebody just as it should. And you're going to go on stage on Saturday, and you're going to look freaking amazing, man. I mean, you're leaner than you've ever been before.
Yep.
I mean, you're freakishly lean right now. Like, I took pictures the other day, and Kara's editing them now, and you've seen some of them, and it's like, this is alien mode. Yeah. And that's awesome, man. Like, that is freaking sweet. I'm getting excited.
And what's funny too is, and one thing that I was going to mention as well, because there's a lot of skepticism around it, is I haven't done a single workout in a gym. this entire time. You know, I've done it all at home.
That is one thing you're crazy for.
Yeah, I've done it all at home in my garage. Body weight and body weight exercises and resistance bands, and I don't feel like limiting myself to that has hindered my progress at all. I haven't had one significant injury. Of course, if you're doing anything where you're pushing your body to the limit, you're going to have little tweaks and strains and some little pains here and there. But as far as anything that has limited my performance, not once. And I've done every workout in the convenience of my own home with absolutely minimal equipment. Essentially just a power tower that allows me to do pull-ups and dips, and the Undersun Fitness resistance bands.
See, that's cool, man. Like, doing a competition prep with keto is like an oddity in itself, but doing it with keto without any normal gym, like no cardio machines, no dumbbells, no barbells, no machine, no nothing. I mean, you're literally using body weight, resistance bands, and a jump rope.
Yep.
That's crazy. I mean, that blows my mind. Like, I'm a hardcore, bodybuilder when it comes to training. Like, I like training with weights. Like, I would be lost without my gym. And here you are defying those odds and being like, no, I'm good. I got my little backpack with my bands, a jump rope. I can do this anywhere. Like, that's got to be liberating because you're literally not bound to a gym.
Yeah.
I mean, the whole reason you started doing this, but you've been doing that for, what, 10 years now?
Oh, yeah, longer than that. Yeah, I've probably been doing it 15 plus years.
And the motivation for doing it was because you didn't want to spend an hour and a half, 2 hours commuting to a gym, training at a gym, spending the monthly membership at a gym, just doing it at home, have more time with your family. I mean, your workouts are like 20, 30-minute workouts.
Yeah, I'd say usually that it will fall in the 30 to 45-minute range. And 45 minutes is, unusual that it'll go that high. Usually it's right at 35 minutes now. And I'm able to, keep rest periods short, take my sets to failure, and notice progress in my strength and my muscle building, and all in the comfort of my own home or wherever I want to do it. And the real benefit is having 5 kids. There is not enough hours in the day, it seems, and this allows me to. There's been times when I've been like, all right, I've got the corner of this room, and it's chest day, because the kids happen to be playing in the area where I normally work out or whatever the case may be. So I'm just gonna come over here and do push-ups for 30, 40 minutes, all sets to failure, 1 minute rest between sets. And I'm able to do it and get it in, and there's that lack of an excuse there to miss a workout.
That is cool, man. Like, I am blown away by your ability to get the conditioning that you have with that very primitive, rudimentary workout. I mean, like, it's obviously been effective. I mean, you haven't sacrificed any loss in muscle definition because of your lack of a gym, that's for sure. Do you feel, just out of curiosity, I'm curious, do you feel like you've sacrificed any potential muscular size over the past 10, 15 years by not incorporating more of the barbells, dumbbells, plate weights, by just doing the body weight resistance bands? Or do you feel like that's like where you're at now is basically the best you could be?
It's funny because one of the reasons too that I went this route was I had seen people build a tremendous amount of muscle, and they credit it to body weight. Everything from Herschel Walker to prison inmates that I watched, during my time as a police officer, had seen them transform their bodies into physical specimens, and they would say a couple body weight exercises with all they did to an extreme amount of reps. So it's fine. I think it's absolutely possible. I think all different types of exercise hold extreme value in different ways. And, all of it, I believe, it comes down to your goals. And, so do I believe if I did different types, I still, like, my mind's going back and forth. It's kind of crazy because I do feel like especially for muscle growth, a lot of it comes down to, exhausting the muscle and time under tension, and that is kind of equal across the board, but everything has a different and unique vantage point. And what I ended up realizing was, all right, with my family requirements, with as much as I have to work, with the limited and varied sleep that I get, with the uncontrollable meal times and everything, I feel like all those are important variables that you have to control if you're going to optimize muscle growth as a natural athlete. Like, you have to take those into consideration and try and optimize those, and those will all contribute towards what gains you're able to make physically. And realizing that a lot of those were limited for me, I ended up determining, that what is my goal? When it gets down to it, at the end of the day, at the time, as a police officer, as a husband and father, what is my goal? And is it attainable with the limiting factors in my life? And I came to the conclusion that my goal was attainable, was staying lean and fit year round. That and the bands and body weight, that allowed me the freedom to get my workout in anywhere, which helped me control and still accomplish my goals despite those other limiting factors in my life that I had for my current situation.
That makes sense.
So, I lifted heavy weights in the past and saw a lot of, it seemed like every time I would go through different phases, and I would play with reps and different exercises, I would see the muscle respond. So there's no doubt in the effectiveness. But I do think from seeing that, as long as I think the muscle will change slightly in appearance, but I feel like if you work out with the intensity and the purpose behind what you're doing, you're going to be able to develop that muscle to its maximum potential, no matter what type of resistance you're using.
Yeah, I totally respect that, man. It's kind of like, when you look at your life, everybody's going to go through different periods in life. They have different demands on them. So whether or not you would have looked different with weights is kind of like a non-issue, because that wouldn't have fit into your life.
Right.
So it's a moot point, basically. Mm-hmm. So doing what you've done, making that work as opposed to making an excuse for it, is very commendable. I mean, like, you have the 5 kids, you have a wife, you have a full-time job, and you haven't sacrificed your goals, your endeavors, and what you've done has worked really, really well. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're incredibly strong. Like, I was impressed with the weight you when you came for the interview. I talked about it on our last podcast, but you were pulling 405 on deadlift, having not done deadlift for 11 years. I mean, that amazes me. And I think the whole stimulate the muscle, don't annihilate the muscle, holds a lot of weight. And if you're training with intention, with purpose, with a goal consistently, that compounded over time beats any other kind of variable, so to speak. So you made me a believer, man. Like, I don't think I'll be transitioning to body weight and bands exclusively, but knowing, just watching you, it's like, okay, that's definitely an option for anybody that the weight scene doesn't work for. They can absolutely do what you've done. And it worked really well for them.
Absolutely. Like, that's what I love about it, is I realized that I didn't have to be in this box, like like heavy weights, or I'm going to be a toothpick. It doesn't have to fit in a box. Like, you can use these various methods, and as long as you keep, it's just so funny. It's as long as you keep investigating, and a lot of it comes down to determining what your goal is and setting attainable goals with the boundaries that are set in your life for what you've got to juggle as an individual. And my dream, one of my dreams, and behind being a fitness enthusiast all these years, was to be able to be lean and fit year round. And through the keto diet, intermittent fasting, and body weight and bands, that is the recipe that worked for me and my life, and I think will work for a lot of busy family men, family women out there that find themselves with the same challenges. Like, hopefully it's an encouragement to people to not just be like, well, it's not in my realm of possibilities. They're like, no, you can make it work. You've got your body weight. You've got hopefully you've got more space available to you than a prison inmate. Yeah, you can make it work.
I love the whole idea of not making excuses, man. Like, no matter what that looks like for you, just simply not make excuses. I mean, that holds a lot of weight in my book, for sure.
Yeah.
I got one more question. I'm kind of running a little short on time. I only got one more important question here.
All right.
You've got a competition on Saturday. You're the kind of person, you're not playing for second place.
No.
Like, you're not doing this. You're not cutting corners. Like, you play to win. That's good. That's how it should be. What is your mindset now going into it? And what is going to happen? Like, I want you to be able to look back on this podcast, listen to this podcast, watch this video, and regardless of the placing, hold your head high and feel proud of what you've accomplished, because you have beat all of your personal records. I mean, you have gotten leaner, you push yourself harder, you've done things you've never done before. So for that reason alone, you're a winner. I mean, you've literally, like, it sounds like a cop-out, but it's not the case at all. I mean, you freaking kicking ass, and you deserve to hold your head high because you've earned it. So use this time to, give a letter to yourself, so to speak, so that you can listen to this after the competition, regardless of the placing, and be proud of what you've done, because you should be. What would you say to your future self?
I think here. I would have to say, regardless of where I place on Saturday, I had accepted a challenge that scared me. It did scare me in the beginning, and it not only scared, but because of I was extremely challenged by the thought of 10 total carbs and where the caloric restriction would get to, and being restrained to something so strategic and detailed. But accepted the challenge, followed through on it, even when my body started fighting the process. And that I was able to break it down and literally at some points take it in 30-minute increments to reach a certain point, which I can honestly say took my physique, took my body, and took me mentally where it has never been before. And no matter, that, not to say this is the hardest thing I'll ever endure, but I have been able to experience something so challenging yet also so rewarding that it will absolutely be something I never forget, but then also something I can think back to and draw on for strength for the rest of my life.
And that is totally true, regardless of the placing, and nobody can take that from you.
Mm-hmm.
My respect for you was already great, but the fact that you've done what you've done, and I've seen you go through the process, and I've seen how you carry yourself throughout it, has made me respect you that much more. So,
Thank you.
Yeah, man, keep doing what you're doing, because it shows in your character.
Thank you.
Well, I want to do it. We're going to do a whole follow-up podcast.
Mm-hmm.
I want to definitely dive deeper then. But I must say, though, man, I'm pretty impressed with your coherence throughout this podcast. I mean, you probably feel depleted.
I do.
I mean, you are physically depleted. But I mean, you sound very coherent and educated, and
hopefully there was a couple points there where I thought, "Oh no, I'm trailing off. I got to bring it back."
No, you're good.
Thought I was losing my mental focus there.
No, you're A-okay, man. You've done everything perfect.
Good.
For anybody that does not know where to find you, where can they find you?
So on Instagram, it's I just changed it recently. It was Real Life Keto Dad, but I just changed it simply to at brandon.t.clark. Make it really simple, and if you just punch in Brandon T. Clark, I'm gonna pop up, and then I'm on Facebook under my general name, Brandon Clark.
Awesome. And you are a Deeper State Keto coach.
Yes.
Which is deeperstateketo.com. And
Yes.
I'm honestly, like, you're going to be a better coach, hands down, no questions asked, because of this.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, even if you're not coaching a competition prep athlete, simply going through a competition prep gives you so much more, knowledge of how the body responds under certain stimulations, certain conditions, how these little variables have such a profound impact, even if you can't tell it so much. Like, if you're at a higher body fat, you wouldn't be able to recognize it as much, but now that you've gotten to this low body fat and your body is so hyper responsive to everything you subject it to, you're gonna be able to take that knowledge forward with any future clients you have.
Absolutely.
So if anybody's interested in getting coached by you, I totally vouch for this guy. I mean, Brandon Clark knows his stuff. He's proven it. So by all means, go check him out, deeperstateketo.com.
Yeah, absolutely. And we need to cover too the one thing that we didn't get to, and it may need to be done on the next one, but the different hacks, including how I used the keto brick the whole way through.
Oh yeah, totally didn't even think to mention that. Yeah, let's definitely talk about that, because I want to talk about the hunger hacks too. We kind of alluded to it, but I want to talk about that in the follow-up podcast. We'll schedule that one so that we're not up at time crunch with this next endeavor. But yeah, I want to dive into all those specifics, man. I want to give people like tangible hacks they can use, tangible action plans, and then obviously I want to talk about the results of the competition and what you feel about it all post-show.
Definitely.
So that will be the next podcast for sure.
Awesome.
Until then, man.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Congrats, brother. You've already won.
Thank you.